or welcome back to my channel. Today I was in the mood to sit down on my bed and do a sit down video, a literal sit down video instead of another one like this, but the lighting is doing what it's doing, so we're just going to not think about it much. Today I'm going to show you guys how I've managed to be able to keep 3 jobs simultaneously, write my thesis, get my driver's license, exercise, have a semblance of a social life, and even do a 10-step hair routine. It's not really a 10-step hair routine, but like sometimes it feels like they are 1,000 steps, so we're just going to go with it. Yeah, before getting into it though, I just want to tell you that I'm going to give you the tools to do it and the methods, but first off, you're going to make sure that you want to do this, okay? So like, have some introspection, some introspective moment, and think if you actually want to organize to the point where I'm going to organize, because I have literally 0.2 seconds a day to breathe. Even this video is scheduled into my schedule. That means that most of my time is actually accounted for. So like, if you are the kind of person who prefers to just go with the flow, this might not be the right thing for you. So just think about it before we start. And anyway, if you thought about it and you want to know what I'm doing, let's get into it. First off, I want to say that I have 2 rules. There are 2 major rules to my methods that if you do not abide by, I guess, you're going to have problems with. First rule is keeping your head in the moment. What do I mean by this? When you're planning, of course, you will think about the future and about the next week probably. I try and replan everything, reschedule everything every week, but I'll mostly keep most of my stuff already planned the moment that I know that I have to do it. So you have to keep in mind that what you're doing at that moment is important, and that what you're doing in that moment is what you have to be doing, okay? So you cannot be thinking while you are working on your thesis that, oh, what am I going to do when I go see my friend? No, either you thought about it before when you were planning, or you're going to think about it later when you're with your friend. You have to actually keep your head in the moment so that the time that you allocate for each part of your life is actually productive. And the second rule is that procrastination is prohibited in this method. It's banned. You cannot procrastinate at all. This seems very harsh, but let's be real. If I procrastinate, I do not have time to do it later. If I don't study for my exam when I said I will study for my exam, I cannot study for it later on because I do not have time later on. My time later on has already been allocated to different things, and if you procrastinate, then you will have to cancel something after. So I am not the right person to ask about procrastination. I still procrastinate very much. Actually, my mom has crowned me the queen of procrastination several times in family therapy. But still, I do think that even if you have trouble procrastinating, it's something you can grow out of. It's something you can learn from. And it's something that maybe you start this method. I don't know if it's a method. I'd say it's more like a system. Maybe you start this system and that's when you actually stop procrastinating. So who knows? Just give it a shot. Now we're going to get into the tools that I use and how I built my system of organizing everything, because I do not just organize my life and my schedule, but also my to-do lists, and everything that I do is actually kind of like accounted for in a way. Not fully, of course. I still leave myself enough time to be able to improvise sometimes, but the time that is improvising time is also measured. So yeah. So first off, I want to show you my Hobonichi. I've had this notebook just this year. I bought it in December and I've been using it since December, and I really like it. This is literally like my second brain. I carry this everywhere. It doesn't matter if I'm at work, if I'm at school, if I'm anywhere, I'll be carrying this in my bag. And it actually has everything that I need to remember every day written here. I use this mostly as a micromanaging tool. I micromanage my life through this. I have all my to-do lists here. I have also all my appointments. All the important dates are written down. And even at the end of it, because this exact version is the Hobonichi weeks, and so that means that you have, I'm going to show you the spread that you would have, and this is how the spreads would look when you do not have anything on them. So basically you have the days of the week on one side and then a blank page on the other that you can use for anything you want, basically. And this is how a spread would look when you do something on it. So yeah, you can see why I'm talking about micromanaging. I have all my to-do lists here. All the stuff that I have to do is counted for and written on the list and assigned to a day. And then I also have all my appointments and all my classes and everything on the other side. But I'm also talking about micromanaging because at the end, you have this kind of page where you have your notes. And here you can do an index of everything that you are using the Hobonichi to track. So I have a budget, a reading wrap-up, YouTube, Redbubble, movies and shows, and a commonplace book. Let's keep the commonplace book really on the air because sometimes I use this, but sometimes I use something else for it. So I don't know what to tell you about that. But when it comes to the reading wrap-up, for example, this is where I write all of my reviews for YouTube. All the reviews of all the books that later on I will talk about here are written down. Basically, that's mostly how I use it. And also keep in mind that you will also have a month view of it at the start of the Hobonichi. Yeah, I really like this tool. I do want to say though that you don't need it. If you really want to do what I'm doing for some reason, I would say that you can also do it in a notebook. I actually started doing it on a notebook. This is the notebook where I started planning last year. And if you check in here, in November, you can basically see that I was doing the same thing, but I was just doing it myself. Basically, the difference is that I had to do all the lines and all the names and all the titles here myself. In the Hobonichi, that's already done. So I actually bought the Hobonichi to reward myself for like actually being organized for the entirety of last year. Because this method is the one that actually made me be able to get organized, get all my life and all the stuff together. So if you realize that like we are already much, maybe I shouldn't spend that much money on a notebook or an agenda or journal, however you want to call it, yeah, then don't. You can just get a €5 notebook. I think this was €5 on Flying Tiger, and you can just write it in. So yeah, let's keep that in mind. As I said, this has my to-dos, my appointments, and everything is written in there. Also budgets, reviews, amounts of hours that I work, etc. I also use it to track my work hours every month so that I know that I'm getting paid what I'm due in a way, no? Because like I understand that when I work odd hours, sometimes I work extra hours, sometimes I don't work that many hours. I just like to keep a track of it myself too, you know, don't just rely on other people counting it correctly. If I had to survive with only one tool for organizing myself, I would choose the Hobonichi or like the notebook with this layout. Then I have my Google Calendar. So I use my Google Calendar as a layout for everything that is in my schedule so that I can have it there but also switch it around. As I said, I actually focus on my Hobonichi once a week at least to organize everything. But when I already know that I have an appointment months ahead of time, I actually write it in my calendar so that then I can see it when I'm planning my week. This is also where I used to be able to see with the week view how much time I actually have between one thing and the other, because sometimes like knowing that you have 2 hours versus actually seeing it on paper is different. So that's really helpful for me, being able to actually see a physical representation of what I have and how much it will take me and how much time I might have free there and here and there. I do not keep my to-dos here. I just keep the appointments, classes, anything that's inside my already scheduled day. I can actually, sometimes I keep in my Google Calendar like, okay, this afternoon I'm going to dedicate 3 hours to my thesis, and I write that down. But I don't really say like, okay, I'll work on my thesis today. I will have that in my Google Calendar. And also, a good thing about this is that you can have it at any point, right? So if you are worried that you might forget something, for example, for me, I really like having it on hand so that I can always look if I have to walk the dog. Because my brothers and I walk the dog, each of us different days, and each week we actually come together to talk, or like each month I would say, not every week. We actually come together to talk about who is going to walk the dog, which day, and everything. I really like having the Google Calendar on my phone and be able to check if I have to walk the dog or not. I also love that I can share it with my mom and my boyfriend, because it has happened more than once that I was working and I've been called by one of them, or I was driving and I was called by them because they did not know where I was. So at some point I just decided to give up and just send them the calendar, and now they can just check if I'm home, if not, if I'm doing something or if not. And this is actually more for my mom than my boyfriend, but I think it also helps my boyfriend be able to know where I am or what I'm doing. And then I would say this is something that's like very, very, very important, and it's my journal. I know that this is not necessarily the healthiest approach, but I actually use my journal as a place for me to vent. I write down so much shit in my journal. And so this is the key to being able to keep your mind in what you're doing. I already told you that you have to keep your head straight, and so that you can focus on what you're doing at all times and not be thinking about what you are going to do or what happened. And I would say that's what I use my journal for. I actually use my journal at least 5 times a month to vent and to get everything out of me, all the stress, everything. At the end of the day, it's also like, sometimes it's just my emotions, you know. Sometimes I'm sad, sometimes I'm happy. I write it down, but I just write everything down here so that I can let it go in a way, you know. I do not read my journal entries, only the happy ones, which are a minority, to be fair. I actually really, really like just having my journal, being able to let everything go, so that when I plan something in my schedule, my mind is also in what I'm doing and not in the past. No amount of planning beforehand is going to matter if you cannot keep your mind in what you're doing. And now I didn't know if I should include this or not. I didn't know if it was actually worth saying, but I would say it's a way for me to organize not my time, but the stuff that I do with it in a way. I have 2 spreadsheets that I actually use nearly every single day. One of them is my budget spreadsheet. I of course have in my Hobonichi already like a section for budgeting, and that's good. But I have another section. I have breakdown of my budget, of how much money I get, how much money I spend, etc., on my spreadsheets. So I do think it's worth saying it. I'm going to talk more though about my reading corner spreadsheet, and I have in my Google Sheets this reading corner spreadsheet situation going on where I am able to track my monthly reads, right? So for now we don't have much because like we are in March, so not much has happened, and I track here the books that I read, my rating, the status, which like mostly it's finished, but there is one that says DNF. For now, just one. Hopefully, that's the only one. And then I have the month that I read it in, the genre, the language, which I think is very important for me in particular, because I actually read mostly in English nowadays. I've gotten more used to reading English, but I could technically also read in Spanish. And I also have checkpoint if I have a physical copy or not, but I can kind of focus on reading more books that I physically owned over books that I don't. One of my goals this year is to reduce to 40% the amount of books that I haven't read in my physical TBR. We'll see if I'm able to. And I have if it's part of a series or not, and the start and end date of the book. And lastly, the pages that the book might have, the notes that I might have on the book, and the count of how many times I've read it. So like for example, the DNF one, I haven't counted it. It's a 0. I have all of them with a 1 because I read them once. And then the best thing of this, to be fair, like this is super cool, like the 2025 reading tracker, but I would say the best thing is my library. So this is a count of every single book I own. It goes all the way to 240 books. I know it sounds insane, but this is of course a list that's like less in depth in a way, or like there's less information on, but it basically says the title of the book, the author, if I read it or not, and the rating, the language, the year I purchased it, the year I read it, the times I've read it, and the publishing house. Not all of them have the publishing house. That's something that I have to get to, but it's 240 books more or less. So like, it's a lot of books and I don't have that much time. I would say this is like one of the things I'm most proud of. Like before this, I did not know how to work Google Sheets, and I'm so proud that like right now I can actually write on my CV that I actually have knowledge of using Google Sheets. And then we have Obsidian. Obsidian is the latest tool that I've added to my system, and I would say that this is more of a creative outlet in an organized way. And well, to be fair, this video has been scripted in Obsidian. It works with a system of folders or vaults. You can then connect your stuff using tags. I'm going to link a video that actually explains how to make it work here, because I am basically a novice here and I do not know how to explain it. But I'm going to take you through the folders that I use. So I have a folder that's learning, one that's production, one that's rough notes, source materials, and templates. Tags and templates we don't care about. So we're just going to focus on the learning, production, rough notes, and source materials. I haven't really used the rough notes one, so that one is also out. I usually use the learning, production, and source materials folders. And inside each of these folders, I have their own folders. So like inside of learning, I have tour notes because I'm a tour guide, so I need to learn my tours, and languages. And inside languages, I have Chinese, which is the language I'm currently actively learning. But if I were learning, for example, next year, if I move to Belgium, I might start learning Dutch or French, and that would mean also having another folder for French. Inside that folder, I'd finally have the level, and then I would have my notes for Chinese. And basically, it's like just having something in your computer, right? But I'm really bad at keeping everything in my computer organized. I'm really bad at putting documents on folders. I don't know why. But in this way, I kinda am able to keep it. I don't know. Like, we will see if it works, because I started this school year really using Notion, really on top of my game with Notion. And actually, I've tried to use Notion several times. I think this was the third or the fourth one, and it never sticks. Like, I just feel like in a couple of weeks I get tired of Notion, and then all bets are off. Like, I will not use it anymore in like the next 6 to 9 months. Yeah, for now, Obsidian is working though. A thing that has me addicted to this platform is the graph view, which I think, I know that this is not the most important thing and this shouldn't be my priority, but like, I love it. I love how it moves. I love how everything is connected. I love how I can see everything in the same place. I really like it. Nothing else to say. I already exposed my tools here. I already showed you what tools I use. And basically how my system works is to-do lists go in the Hobonichi directly, but then appointments go in the calendar. And every week I'll check my to-do list for the week, my appointments, and I will build the week. And that's where it starts, actually. It's very simple. It's just knowing what you have to do when and doing it. Just keeping your mind straight to that. And keeping other parts of your life organized is important too, so that it doesn't snowball. Because imagine you have on Mondays that you're going to clean your clothes. You're going to do the washing, so you're going to put all your clothes in the washer, you're going to hang them, or you're going to put them in the dryer, and then you don't fold them, and you keep them in the bed. And for a week, those clothes are going from the bed to your chair, to the bed, to the chair, to the bed, to the chair. Next week, you will have to once again do the washing. Means that you will actually have double, or at least partially double, of those clothes now. And if you just keep snowballing it, your life is going to start crumbling slowly, you know? Because one week you don't have time for your clothes, the next week you don't have time for vacuuming, the next week you won't have time for taking the trash out, etc, etc. So I just think that it's important to keep an organized environment and make time to do everything that you need to do, and to keep that time in your schedule so that you actually do it. I really like just writing little tasks, my to-do list, like change sheets or do laundry or stuff like that, which doesn't necessarily, like, they don't really have their time slot, because it's not like I'm going to do laundry for 3 hours in an afternoon. I'll just put the laundry on, and while the washing is being done, I will be doing something. Like, I just like being able to, after it comes out, being able to tick it as done. This was it for today's video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, you might consider subscribing, because for you it's not much and for me it will make my day. And I hope to see you soon. Bye!